New Zealand First makes a mockery of Parliament. New Zealand First damages the dignity and respectability of Parliament. New Zealand First degrades and demeans Parliament. Parliament should be a serious and respectable institution. Parliament should be a prestigious institution. New Zealand First threatens that prestige perhaps more than any other party. New Zealand First makes Parliament look like a joke. They do this in an array of different ways. They are a tiny party that received only 6% of the vote. Yet they hold numerous key ministerial positions and have a momentous amount of power within the government. This, in of itself, is a laughable arrangement that makes democracy look like a sham. I do think that this is at least partially forgivable because it is more a feature of the electoral system than anything else. But this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to New Zealand First's mockery of the institution. New Zealand First is laughably corrupt. Winston Peters has a history of taking big money political donations from the racing industry. Winston Peters is the Minister of Racing. Shane Jones has a history of taking big money political donations from the fisheries industry. Shane Jones is the Minister of Fisheries. Both Winston Peters and Shane Jones have exploited their positions to make questionable decisions regarding these interests. Shane Jones is laughably corrupt, with all kinds of dodgy connections to the fishing industry and companies potentially involved in the government's fast-track policy. This overt and blatant corruption makes a mockery of Parliament. Ministers should not have a history of receiving big money donations from the business interests that they are supposed to be regulating. This conduct destroys the respectability of Parliament by making it a place of corruption and special interests. Furthermore, New Zealand First has made repeated attempts to import low-quality, American-style politics to New Zealand. New Zealand First has developed a fixation on culture war issues, the transgender issue and co-governance being two prime examples. New Zealand First has been encouraging a low-quality politics that is centred around culture wars rather than serious policy. They are more interested in talking about transgender bathrooms and vaccine mandates than the cost of living or the housing crisis. They seek to import a low-quality American-style politics that focuses on symbolic issues to distract from a lack of serious solutions to substantive issues. And they attack vulnerable minorities in the process. New Zealand First makes a mockery of Parliament by using Parliament not as a serious lawmaking institution, but instead as a platform for virtue signalling. Most of New Zealand First's primary policies are symbolic virtue signals that have no material value to anyone. The promise to change government department names back to English. An attempt at virtue signalling to racists. The COVID inquiry. An attempt at virtue signalling to anti-vaxxers. The transgender bathroom policy. An attempt at virtue signalling to transphobes. These policies are a joke. They represent shameless virtue signalling. They have no serious impact on people's lives. They are just symbolic culture war nonsense. They are a waste of taxpayer money. They are pointless attempts to virtue signal to the worst people in New Zealand. New Zealand First does not treat Parliament like a serious lawmaking institution. New Zealand First treats Parliament like a platform for virtue signalling. They are more interested in symbolic culture war nonsense than serious solutions and strong policies. They are more interested in virtue signalling to idiots than solving serious issues. They make a mockery of Parliament. They undermine the prestige of Parliament. And then there is the rhetoric, constantly using the word woke, accusing people of being lefty shells. This language is unserious and embarrassing. It sounds like the blabber of a right-wing YouTuber, not the words of a high-ranking minister. This kind of talk undermines the respectability of Parliament. It transforms a serious institution into a forum for culture war stupidity. It is beyond embarrassing. It is unserious and childish behaviour. Shameless virtue signalling with no substance. New Zealand First is a national disgrace. New Zealand First makes a mockery of Parliament. New Zealand First makes the government look like a joke. It is as if they found the dumbest 8 social media users they could find and gave them each a seat in Parliament. It undermines the respectability of Parliament. It destroys the prestige of Parliament. Parliament should be treated as a very serious institution, not a forum for mindless culture wars and out-of-touch virtue signalling. New Zealand First is a pathetic joke. Winston Peters has doused his legacy in kerosene and set it alight. He has made himself a joke. He has made his party an embarrassment. He has made parliamentary debate sound like a social media spat. He has swapped out serious rhetoric for the lines of a mindless right-wing troll. He is the furthest possible thing from a serious statesman. It is pathetic and embarrassing. He does not deserve to be a member of Parliament, much less a high-ranking minister. We must make sure these clowns are voted out in 2026.